Welcome to Off the Court. We're back. It's international season. And wow, I've got a lineup for you. I mean, I wish I could have started recording 5 minutes ago when we were chatting beforehand, but you're in for a real treat. We have England Rose's head coach, Jess Thirlby, and her two new specialist coaches, Harten and Sharni Norder. Welcome, you lot.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. Jess, I'm going to come to you to start off with. Actually, before we start, I just have to say we didn't text each other this morning to work out what we were wearing because me, Sharni and Joe, if you are watching on YouTube, are wearing the same hoodies. But I'm just over here fangirling those who are proper coaches, properly working with Jess and the England squad. But it's very, very good. We look very cool this morning in our hoodies. But I want to get started with the tour. Jess, I'm going to come to you first. It's a big tour. It's a long tour. Big expectations?
Always. I think I would hope that never falters, really. Like, it doesn't matter what stage we're in as we build towards like the long term, which is that 2027 World Cup over here on Australian soil. But I think the expectations we have of ourselves, the girls have of themselves now, like we're in a different space. I think the mindset shifted quite a bit in the last couple of years. So more of that. I think our expectations and ambition have to stay really high if we're to kind of like close that gap over the next couple of years. So big expectations of ourselves, but we're under no illusion as to, like you say, it's not a big tour. We're playing the world number 1 and 2 quite quickly. Hot off of both the Super League season and the SSN season. So just bring it on, really. Like, it's kind of what we've got used to in terms of we don't do things easy. We're not afraid of coming over here soon and early in our cycle. And, you know, you never can guarantee when you're going to get these opportunities to play world number 1 and 2. So the earlier, the better for us. And we've got an evolving and exciting team. You know, there is a lot of new and fresh talent and emerging talent that's come through that is kind of like unlocking some different combinations and things for us to kind of stress test. And no better place to stress test it than here. So we may as well get on with it, really. So, really looking forward to it.
Well, you talk about stress testing. I was looking at the results before I came on the call, and in the past, I think 2 seasons, we have had so many close encounters, 1 or 2 games. I think I counted sort of 7 or 8 games against Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Uganda that have been within 5 goals or, more importantly, 1 or 2 goals. Are you guys getting used to that now, that kind of pressure, that goal-for-goal game? Because we probably don't always have that week in, week out Super League. We're trying to get there. But internationally, how have you had to change and adapt as a coach? And are you like, do you love that?
I definitely prefer that, to losing by a lot, which I think is, but I think you're right. I think the evolution of, as I said, like the team, we in the end took a very experienced team to World Cup. And when I say that, I mean, as in them as a collective, and obviously across the group, we had a lot of kind of old experienced heads in that group, but they journeyed through the last 4 years, and it took that long to get us to that place where we were capable of at least pushing ourselves into that final and giving it our best shot. So these things don't happen overnight. So I think do I enjoy it? I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but like I wouldn't want to be in this job trying to get and galvanise a Roses team to keep doing things that others haven't done often or at all or for the first time if you're not prepared to kind of sit in those spaces where it's like a 1-goal loss, a 1-goal win, a draw, a blowout, you know, like either way of the scoreline. Like I think that's all part of the journey, and I think it builds great character, of which this team have got an abundance, and they're not kind of like backing off of that challenge. I think they're really leaning into that, and like their commitment is in full flow with like how capable that they think they are. And I think the more experienced or familiar names in this group speak all the time around how the younger ones or the newer ones in the team are speaking differently. Like everything's shifted, that they can kind of like remember what it was like 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago, but they're working with girls that have only been in here for some their debut season, and they're straight out here and playing Australia. So I think it's nice to hear that the language and the narrative has changed, and we're kind of like starting to turn the tide. But as I say, you know, we have had closer games. Yes, we've managed to take the scalp of some of the best teams in the world a little bit more frequently, but we've also fallen too short at times as well in terms of like being able to back that up. And that's kind of where we're at the moment, is making our bottom line much higher and knowing that our best is as good as anybody's in the world, but we just need to be able to do it consistently. And, you know, as you know, that's that isn't about one thing, it's multiple things in trying to shift the needle on that kind of session on session, week on week, year on year, of which we've got a couple now. So it's exciting and a brilliant opportunity that we have ahead of us.
Well, one thing we've seen shift is this coaching lineup. So Sonia McCloma's obviously gone and taken over at the Pathway, which is amazing. Leon Leota is still around. We've seen Anna Stembridge, so that partnership come back together. But the rise of the specialist coach, and Joe, I'm going to come to you to start off with, because we're seeing this more and more often. Now, you've been in and around the Roses environment. You've actually been there, seen it, done it all, really, all the stuff Jess was talking about, the holistic changes. And you've got this specialist coach, I'm guessing in the shooting end, unless you start telling me you're a wing defence specialist, but you're doing the specialist coaching role. How are you finding that and being in that group and seeing those changes?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I look at the role that, I've been asked to play out here, and it is essentially to, I guess, impart some of the knowledge that I have or had as a player in the Roses environment, and give that to the young and up and coming shooters, which is a lot scarier, I think, than I thought it might have been. I think the more I step into this coaching role, I think the easier playing becomes, because you don't have to think about anything else when you're playing. You just step out on court and do what comes natural. But everything matters when you're coaching, especially really impressionable young athletes who hang off your every word. So I found it really exciting, really challenging at points, but it's just such, I guess, it's always an honour to help represent the red dress. That's been my life probably for the last 20 years. So to be in a capacity that I can, potentially help the next up-and-coming Roses shooter develop against number 1 and 2 in the world is a really exciting prospect.
It's funny you talk about sort of that scary piece there. Is that just sort of like, I guess it's like raising kids, right? You tell them to do something and then they go and do it and you're like, no, I didn't mean that. Is it that kind of moment?
I think because I know what to expect when playing against an Australia, so I think I guess it's scary in a sense, but it's probably more so exciting because there are so many opportunities now for young athletes to step into a Roses environment and then hopefully earn a call up into the dress. So you always want the best for the athletes in the program, and you want them to do as best as they can individually, and you want to hope that best is helping the team get over the line and win. So I think, it's scary because there are so many opportunities and there is so much potential bubbling around this team, especially in that attack end. So I think, I want them to do well. I know what they're going to face, and I just, want them to put the best foot forward.
Well, Sharni, you definitely know what they're going to face. And it's interesting with this specialist coach role, because I've been banging on it for ages about, one coach shouldn't fit all. And I think netball's been quite slow to the table, I reckon, in bringing in other coaches for loads of different reasons. But I think I was really excited when I saw this Roses lineup. You've come in, before we even get into that, you've been doing this defensive specialist coach at Vixens. How the hell did you come to the dark side? How did that happen?
Well, I just got a phone call one day from the boss, and she just said, Sharni, first and foremost, I'm interested in getting you over to the Roses, but, how would you feel about coming over to the dark side? And she said, I'd be really excited, Jess. I'd be pumped. But I think you'll have to pick Jess's brain about how it all came about. But I think first and foremost, I was really excited. I felt, heaps of gratitude around the fact that Jess had even thought of me to get me involved. I obviously love netball. I love it at the highest level. I love how much you can change. It's a big game of chess at the end of the day and how much it can challenge you. But I think what I've loved most about being involved with coaching the last couple of years is really helping others see the best in themselves and helping others get the most out of themselves. And to be able to work on the international stage is such a privilege, but also to be able to work with some of the best athletes in the world is a real honor in that as well. So I was really excited. I've always had the bigger picture in mind around wanting to push world netball and being able to see more countries competing against each other competitively at the highest level is what we want to see in world netball. So to be able to have the opportunity to come over and help England, it's pretty cool, to be honest.
Well, it's funny because I remember us having a chat at the 2019 World Cup, and we were chatting with some of the World Netball delegates, and we were very passionate about that, about how we upskill the rest of the nations and what that looks like, and giving them opportunity as well. Getting involved with Scotland was huge for me, and I know you had big thoughts and ideas. I just have to say though, have you had any stick from any of the Aussies? Has anybody gone, Sharni, what are you doing?
Well, I think the best thing about me, Tamsin, is no one says anything to my face, so probably a little bit behind my back, but everyone's been really supportive, which has just been awesome. But I also think that that's just a shout out to the people that I surround myself with that are really supportive. And as Joe said, it is really scary coming to the other side and having to apply your knowledge in a different way. It can be quite confronting at times, but just reminding myself of, that knowledge that I do have and that I can impart on this amazing defensive group that I'm just been, loving working with, even though it's only been 2 weeks, but also seeing the potential in them and what they can continue to grow and do together is really cool. So, I'm really excited.
Well, then I'll come to the boss then, Jess. So how did that conversation come about? And this specialist coach role, like how important it's been you to bring those different voices in and those different opinions?
Yeah, look, every decision I make has to be with what I believe the team needs are first and foremost. So, I think it's really important that we're not here for the next 3 years to just repeat what we've done for the last 5. Like the team are evolving, the environment has to evolve and level up. And that also means that I have to be super open-minded around how this coaching space evolves. And I'm lucky that I'm in this position for another cycle. And I back myself in terms of my own growth and what I can do better and differently and how to elevate the team's performance. But I know the team need fresh ideas. They need a fresh voice. My voice alone is not always going to be enough. And I actually really enjoy that space. I love co-creating, collaborating with new people, different people. And it's funny because I've sat in specialist coaching roles myself, actually with the Roses. Joe was most probably still in and around the team at that point as well. And I've got kind of a weird relationship with specialist coaches because I think when I've been one, I think it's both really freeing to kind of be afforded to look at something really quite narrow and make maximum impact in a small space, in a short space of time as well. But at the same time, I hate to pigeonhole people or for me to feel constrained by that. So it's something that I try and be really mindful of. And I guess my way to do that is to, one, celebrate who and where do I think there are people that can really add value. And I don't just think of that from a technical and tactical point of view. I think of it from a person perspective and who the right characters are that are going to really kind of connect with these players at this moment in time in their journey. So I think I would say Joe and Sharni are obviously specialists in the obvious, which is the circle work and how they played the game. I think Sharni, as we know, was just a real menace on the court. Luckily, I kind of avoided Sharni. I was a bit too old, I think. But she was coming kind of breaking on the scene. I mean, I had to go up against the likes of Monia, which also was a nightmare. So I had my fair share of nightmare Aussie defenders to live in my head for a while. But I think, when I think about technically, tactically, how do we see our defending end evolving? What are the things that I think are going to help with that? Then I think both Sharni's attitude, mindset, her ruggedness, her one-on-one, her passion, that on every level, there were things for me that truly aligned with where the group are at the minute. And like Joe said earlier, impressionable, but still with the likes of a Fran in there who are hungry to constantly get better. But then when you've got a Fumi and an Alice here and a Raz, the talent is crazy in that end of the court. And I think it's we know the way we want to play defensively that plays to the strengths of that unit. Which I think is different to any other international team. But I also know that there are some fundamental bits in there that we need to be way more consistent with, and the standards need to be super high. And I think that's what Sharni is bringing. And I think Sonia did the same. So it's been a really nice transition. But I think most importantly, these two don't just come in and technically add value. Obviously, I didn't know Sharni well, but I had my perception, but I also I'm very open-minded, and it took me most probably 3 seconds to know it was the right thing to do when I spoke to Sharni. So I trust my gut a lot and my intuition. So it was a no-brainer once I'd spoken to Sharni. We talked about the elephant in the room, is there going to be a problem? Where do your loyalties lie? I asked that question, I think, second, and it was a no-brainer. So I just think they're special people. Obviously Joe has huge amounts of knowledge. She's very creative. Like, I bounce off that as well. I think it freshens kind of me up and just checks and challenges me and my thinking. But I know that they're super aligned with that. And that's a huge testament, I think, to, in particular, Sharni, who's not been around our environment, to kind of come in and jump in with 2 feet has just been like a real joy to watch. But their characters, their spirit, their passion, like to care this much about a team wanting to be number one in the world, when you've been that team in Sharni, and 2, you've been on the other side with Joe, who's got that one really special gold medal. Like, it really is like a great mix of like determination. And I think for Sharni to care enough that she sees the bigger picture, she's helping a team that could go on to really challenge the top order. And yeah, I couldn't be happier with how it's played out for the last few weeks in Perth. It's been awesome.
I think she bigged you up pretty well there, you lot. I also want to know, on another call we'll find out what you said in the first 3 seconds, Sharni, to make Jess know that she wanted you, but that's very impressive. Now we're going to delve straight into the squad. Joe, I'm going to start with you. There's some couple of new faces in the Roses, some very familiar faces. Let's talk about Lois Pearson. Did you see, I mean, did you watch a lot of the Super League last year? Like, I know you're very busy, but did you see how well she played? I mean, she finished on 89% for the season, that proper kind of feeding but also dominant goal attack going into the circle. I don't know if you knew much about her personality. Like, I've spoken to her a couple of times. She's quite shy and reserved. You know, she's not one of those, like Jess and I used to be, flick your ponytails kind of goal attacks. Like, it's really interesting to watch her. How have you found working with her?
Yeah, like, I hadn't seen a lot of her from the Super League season, but I had seen a lot of her name. It just kept like continually coming up, like playing well, connecting with Nat, obviously, at Thunder. And yeah, her name was just popping up. And then when I took on this role, that was probably one of the first questions that I asked is, can I get some footage of Lois? Because I just want to see what she's about. And to be honest, like, she's been super impressive. A hard-working goal attack that kind of digs her heels in, does the hard stuff up at the CPA line, gets involved first phase, gets involved second phase, and then isn't scared to shoot. So that's probably a dream for me as a specialist shooting coach, because that's exactly what you want. But yeah, like, if you take her season and then kind of just look at that alone, you'd probably expect her like to have been playing for England for, you know, the past like 3 or 4 years. Like, she seems like a really wise and experienced character. But uncapped. So it's been great to get to kind of work with her the last couple of weeks in training, see her connections with the experienced girls that we have in already, and also how she plays out, you know, with ball in hand, being creative outside the circle. I think has been a real key feature of the England attack squad for many, many years, that we can actually deliver ball, offload, and then go and attack the post. So yeah, been super impressed with her, and I can't wait to see what she can do over the next, I guess, 6 games.
Yeah, me too. I'm very excited to watch her. I'm thrilled that she's got an opportunity. Sharni, I've just got one word for you then. Fumi, talk to me.
Fumi, what an amazing athlete. You know, I think I was really excited to come over and work with Fums, just because, like, I saw her first international season that she played, and she literally really did just burst onto the scene in those games that she played. And so to have the opportunity, as I said, to be able to work with someone that has that amazing athletic capability, but also just so smart at the same time. And I think the most exciting part is that we haven't even scratched the surface yet of not only what she can do, but the defender that she is going to continue to become. She's an absolute menace, you know, gives absolutely every shooter, but not only shooter, just anyone that is in any vicinity of where she is, she will give them absolute hell. The ability to read the ball, her ability to run onto that first ball, you know, is just such an incredible strength to have when you've got that amount of speed. But, you know, if she's nearly beaten or whatever, she can also get back, and she's got that agile athletic jump as well. But also her ability to work within combinations within the circle is something that I've been impressed by the whole defensive group, to be honest. I think, you know, what England has that is a real strength over perhaps what other countries have is just their combinations and their willingness to work together, and their ability to work together can make it feel like there is an extra defender out there, which is what you want at the end of the day. So I'm not actually loving working with all of the athletes. Raz, same thing, absolute menace, super, super smart. I've absolutely loved seeing Fran out there in the Super Netball this year. I thought she had an absolutely incredible year with Fever. I actually hadn't seen her much, to be honest, before she came out here this year, and just her dogged workhorse mentality and to get to balls that, and I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying, you just don't think she's going to get to. And then all she just gets them, and you're like, where has she even come from? And then Alice as well, who, you know, I hadn't seen much of before I got here, and I actually didn't know much about her. The quiet achiever, but she's actually really vocal and quite directive out in front. And what they all bring is something different, which is so lethal when they're all together. And Fumi's only just a small piece of that puzzle. While she's quite a powerful piece, it's actually the whole puzzle put together that I'm most excited about.
No, that's very cool. No, it's funny you say that about Fran. I was watching her getting rebounds this year in the SSN, and again, I'd say the same. But she's so good at reading the game in a different way. Like, she just gets the stuff that is incredible. Anyway, one of the smartest players I've ever worked with. Go on then, Jess. How important was it keeping Fumi in the NSL this year? I'm going to go a bit more long-winded on my question. There was lots of rumours. There was lots of stuff on social media this year. Lots of gossip around the signings. We had a great signing period. Everything live on Sky, which got loads of interest. We've obviously lost Imo to the Firebirds. We know that players like Joey, Helen have kind of made their lives out in Australia. We've seen that New Zealand are still putting their rules around it. So Grace Nweke signed for Australia this year. She can play the international season out now, but she won't be available in 2025. I know England in the past have toyed with it, but where do you stand now? Is it just more about timing of when players go?
I always think it has to be individual, case by case, and like from back in the day when like the Ebonies and Serenas and like that generation of players got quite rightly eyes on them and were tempted and got offers. You know, we're going right back to their under 21 days really, and I've always been a big believer that it has to be about timing, and you have to look at the whole athlete, like what's going on for them. And I'm under no illusion that I'm sure Fumi's been asked to go to SSN for the last 2 or 3 years. You know, like this isn't just a 2024-25 signing opportunity. And, you know, ultimately it always has to be the athlete's choice. So I'm not sat in this space where I've dictated yes or no as her Roses coach. I think it has to be holistically what's right for me. And I think, you know, I'm a big believer, you know, that we came through a system at Team Bath where, and I know we're evolving and I'm all for that in terms of professionalising the league and, you know, young players knowing it's something they can do for a living moving forward. But I think having those other things in place, if you can, like Fumi's got 1 more year of uni, I think that is really important. And if she can kind of get that under her belt, like I do believe that that's a huge achievement, right? And I don't think we should sniff at players that kind of make sure that they get that under their belt, they've got their academics sorted, and she's invested a lot of time and energy in that. She's a smart girl, and I think most probably getting that degree is not something that we should most probably dismiss quickly. We're all biased because we would, you know, we talk about in years to come, sooner rather than later, we want the world's best to be attracted to our NSL, right? That's what I think our ambition is. So both to retain the best players and to attract some of the best players in the world is what we want in the NSL. Now, Fumi's going to be one of those. So I know in the short term, you know, we'd all love to keep watching Fumi in, week out in the NSL, but also I'm very open to the huge benefits and advantage it's given both individuals and then England teams, whether it's now or back in the day, where it's helped to demystify, strengthen their game. And ultimately, it's just because it's been professional and the standard of that league as a result is kind of a decade ahead in terms of like finding its feet in that space. And I think we'd be a little bit naive to not say that there's not been advantages of that, both for the individual and, you know, collectively as a team. But, you know, I think for me in particular, it's about timing. Do I think that she'll be able to make ground and stay in the NSL and still keep improving? Yes, I do. I'm confident in that. I'm confident in our own environments and what we can also supplement from a Rose's point of view. Do I think there's going to be real strength if she chooses to move into SSN in the near future? Yeah, because she's young and it will most probably kind of like accelerate some of the things that we're not yet able to completely do. But you just don't want to obviously lose. You don't want to lose talent forever. So I'm always a big fan when people circle back round and not as kind of like a swan song, like hopefully in the future it'll be more intentional. It'll be because they're attracted back to our league because, as you say, the games are closer, the competition's tighter, the quality's higher, the environments are nailed on in terms of like what we're able to provide. And I know that's where we're headed, and that's super exciting. But between now and then, I think we can be really skillful around when players are going over there. How do we manage that for both from a Rose's perspective and make sure that it adds value to our ambition of being world champions, but also there is a ripple effect. We are a shop window for our own league. And if we can help what we do here to celebrate and acknowledge that there's strength in our league as well, which I know we do attract great players and we keep great players. But for me, my experience with all of those young athletes is about timing. And I think Immo's a really good example of that. I think a couple of years ago would have been too soon. I think she's kind of got a good head on her shoulders, and where she's at developmentally on an international stage and positionally, she's going to get some good lessons, I think, in SSN as a centre week on week. And I see that as a huge advantage to both her and us, hopefully. So, yeah, I don't like losing them. But I think we also have to be a little bit kind of, we have to accept at the moment we're kind of in like that grey area.
Yeah, no, I'd absolutely agree. And it's quite interesting. I wouldn't want to see a set rule and put that much pressure on youngsters as well. And like you say, as our league improves, you're going to hope you're going to get those players back. I mean, it's hard to pull them back when they live in Brisbane for a couple of years.
Just true. This is true.
Now, listen, I could continue talking about England, and we could talk all of it, but we might need to actually just delve into a little bit that we're going to face, you know, that other team, Australia, for 3 games, which is why you guys are out there. So, Joe, I'm going to come to you first about the Aussie squad and actually flip it and talk to you about their defence end, because we know there's no Weston and Bruce. But as always with Australia, it doesn't seem to matter. So I'm really excited about seeing Ash Evan out there. I just wondered your thoughts on that defensive end and how you're prepping that England unit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're going to have skill and talent in their defensive end. It is Australia. Ash Irvin's had a breakout season in the SSN. I've come up against her a couple of times, and she's got really great range. She feels a lot of that circle, and she's not scared to have a crack at the ball. So, yeah, I think we're prepping as best we can, because we know there are different combinations in that Aussie defensive line that, you know, we've already faced Sarah Clow. She's looking like she's probably going to be a starter and kind of the leadership down in their end. And of course, they've got Sunday, who's, you know, had a couple of really strong seasons in the SSN, a really, really smart player with great timing. So for us as an English attack, we're looking at all of those different, you know, defensive combos and how we combat that without giving too much away, obviously. At the end of the day, it's about exposing the weaknesses that those individuals might have shown over the last couple of years, and I think more importantly actually exposing the strength of the English attack, how we can work in combination with our mid-court to have real, you know, success at attacking the circle edge, and then ultimately inside attacking the post. You know, we have to have confident shooters on the shot, and I think for us we're very lucky in that space that the girls out here on tour know the job and the task ahead of them, and they're going to step up to the plate. They're not scared of that.
Yeah, mentally, the shift in that group over the last 5 to 10 years has been huge. And just like you say, that kind of approach to post and the fearlessness and how they go, it's been quite incredible to watch, particularly because we're not a big circle. And you talk about Irvin's range in there, just that sort of fearlessness of how they do that. Has there been anything specific about that, or has that just been pure opportunity of playing?
I think, yeah, it's the opportunity of playing. I think, you know, we know there are really obvious things against Australia. You know, if we miss a heap of shots, they're going to snaffle up rebounds, especially with an Irvin back there. But I think there's also opportunity to get a rotational circle moving, getting the ball zipping around, but still having the option of, you know, a tall holding shooter. I think we're in a great position that most of our attacking shooters or attacking mid-quarters, you know, they have really good connections, and that's what you need against a taller defender. You need to be able to move the ball, change the body angle for us to expose those things. So I think those are the things we'll definitely be looking at and touching on. But yeah, like I say, like it's actually just that confidence. Once ball lands and we have the ability to get the ball landing in the circle time after time, it's that confidence to post, which, you know, that's my job to help instill in our shooters. But that has been a transitional piece for the last 5-6 years, you know. don't be scared to shoot over a big Aussie defender, because the risk versus reward, the reward's huge, and that's what we're going to be aiming for.
Oh, nice. I mean, I could dive right into super shot here, but we haven't got time, so I'm going to move to Sharni. And we talk about the rotating circle. Let's flip it the other end then, because we know what Sophie Garbin can do. You know exactly what Sophie Garbin can do. Your Kira Austin, Soph Dwyer on the ball. They are untouchable at the moment, right? What sort of defensive strategies are you guys looking at to combat that?
Well, similar to Joe, you don't want to give too much away. You never know who's listening in. I've learned that many a time, Tamsin. But I think for us, and it's probably no secret why, one of the reasons why Jess said that she got me in, it's just that workload and that repeated workload and what we're doing, and to be able to apply that pressure consistently for a full 15 minutes for a full 4 quarters is something that the Aussies aren't used to having to face, to be quite honest, on a regular basis continuously. And if we can keep them under that pressure for longer periods of time, then we are going to win more ball back, and to be able to create those opportunities for ourselves, for each other, by putting in the work and doing what we need to do, and having a few different combinations up our sleeves is something that is really exciting for us. And as Jess said, we know that when we're playing our best that we can match it with them, but it's just about doing that more consistently, and being able to adapt quicker throughout the quarters, which we've been seeing, some really good signs of throughout this camp so far. But we know they're going to swing the ball quick. We know that they want to make us move their heads. We know that they're going to be trying to hit circle edge. We know that they love to try and draw a shooter out and come back in. And we also know they've got the opportunity to bring and sub them on as quickly as can. They've also got the addition of Georgie Horges on this tour as well, who's obviously coming off her premiership win back to back. And I'm imagining she'll be feeling pretty confident and pretty good about herself as well. And that's going to be something different that the team hasn't seen before either. I think Georgie brings that real power and speed. It's almost like having 2 Liz Watsons out in front of whoever they decide to put behind them. So it's about just being prepared for all of the combinations that they can also put in front of us. But we also need to stick to our plan and what we know that we need to do, and not get too caught up in their stuff too.
Well, it seems like you lot have been very busy with all those combinations. That is a lot to be looking at. I don't envy you guys at all. But listen, this is the final question, because we are at the end of it, and it can be as short and sweet as you like. You talked about shared environments. You've talked about the differences you guys bring. Anything you've learned from each other? I know, Sharni, you've not been in camp since 2017, so this is new, being back in that international environment. Anything, even if it's just words or things that you guys have been doing, anything you've learned off each other?
I've loved Jo as a coach, and I tell her this, she is so clear and strong, and her knowledge as an attacker is something that I don't have. I don't have that attacking knowledge, and someone who's probably looking to be a head coach one day, I've really enjoyed seeing Jo step into that space, because quite honestly, before we got here, we hated each other, really, so...
you have
we've been playing
people,
against...
Sharni.
I do have that effect on people. It's not a good trait to have. But me and Jo had been playing against each other since 2009 in the Under-21 World Youth Cup. So to be able to see the other side of Jo, it's obviously a player that I always respected, but to see her just so natural in this coaching environment has been really cool. And I've loved, learning off Jess as well. I've never known anyone to hold so much information and see so much in 1 second at a time. And that is something that I really admire about her, and something that I aspire to be able to do one day as well. But the open conversations, how much we're bouncing and learning, and it's been a really enjoyable time.
Aww. Look at that Aussie loving. Who'd have thought it? Who'd have thought it?
They might not say something about the stinky Aussie, but that's all right.
No, that's what I was going to say, Shans. I was going to say I've learned that big, bad, tough Aussie defenders do actually have hearts, and you've brought so much heart into this England camp. So it's all love now, isn't it?
It's all love. We're all love here.
Oh, look at that.
Let's get those Aussies, eh?
On that, Jess, unless you want to add, I'm not even sure there's anything to add to that, is there?
I don't think I can top that, no.
Oh, that was a moment, guys. That was a moment. And it is going to be a moment. We've got 3 games coming up against the Aussies before you head to New Zealand. Look, we are super excited. You spoke earlier, Jess, that you're quite happy with these tight goal games. I mean, as an England fan back here, I'd kind of like it a 10-goal buffer, if that's all right. It's a bit too early in the morning. But listen, massive good luck from all of us over here in the UK. All the games will be live on Sky, so we'll be following you with all the action as well. And we look forward to speaking with you, all members of the team, over the next couple of weeks. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.